To everything there is a season. Have you ever felt like your life is completely out of control? Like you are spinning in circles, doing everything you can, yet the world keeps moving in ways you never planned for? Picture this. You have just lost your job. Your marriage feels strained. Your child is struggling in school. Your health takes a turn. And you are sitting there at 2 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, thinking, why is everything falling apart right now? Why can I not just fix this? Here is the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to admit, but everyone feels. We desperately want to control our lives, and we are failing. Today we are going to walk through one of the most liberating, yet deeply unsettling verses in the King James Bible. It is found in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verse 1. What this verse says might be the key to accepting the one thing that could finally set you free. Let us hear it from the early 17th century King James Bible version, better known to us as the KJV. To euery thing there is a season, and a time to euery purpose under the heauen. It sounds poetic and beautiful, but inside those words is something radical, something that speaks to the deepest anxiety of the human heart. By the time we finish, you will not only know what this verse says, you will understand why someone desperate for the meaning of life wrote it down almost 2,500 years ago. So, who wrote Ecclesiastes? Tradition says King Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, sitting in old age writing his reflections. That is a comforting picture. But most scholars believe the book was written much later, somewhere between 450 and 200 BC, nearly 1,000 years after Solomon died. The writer was most likely not sitting on a throne. He was probably part of a small, powerless Jewish community living under the rule of a huge foreign empire. Imagine this. It is around the year 300 BC. You are a Jewish writer in the city of Jerusalem. But Jerusalem is no longer truly yours. The city is now a province of the Hellenistic Greek Empire that swept across the world after Alexander the Great. Your people have already survived catastrophe. Your ancestors were dragged into exile in Babylon. You have only recently been allowed to return. The temple has been rebuilt, but it is a shadow of what it once was. You are living in a new world. Greek ideas fill the streets. Greek philosophy seeps into your culture. The rich grow richer, the poor sink deeper into poverty. You look around and see injustice and inequality everywhere. People work their whole lives and have nothing to show for it. People are born, they die, and you start to wonder, what is the real difference between a human life and an animal's life? We all return to dust. Here is the painful part. And you cannot change any of it. You have no political power, no army. You cannot overthrow empires or rewrite laws. You cannot stop death. You cannot guarantee success. You cannot control anything that really matters. So this wisdom teacher sits down to write a book about all the things people usually avoid. The meaninglessness, the futility, the anxiety, the crushing awareness that life is not what we thought it would be. He presents it as if Solomon were speaking, because that gives him cover and authority. Over and over he uses a word usually translated as vanity, but the Hebrew word is closer to emptiness, futility, vapor, hebel, like mist, like chasing the wind. That is what life feels like when you discover you cannot control it. Yet he is not writing to drag people into despair. He writes because he has discovered something that changes how all of this can be seen. To feel the full weight of Ecclesiastes 3:1, we have to step into that world. For nearly 400 years, Judah lived under the Persian Empire. The Persians could be tolerant. They let you keep your religion and rebuild your temple. But they did not let you be free. You were a small province. You paid their taxes. You obeyed their laws. You stayed in your place. Then in the 452nd BCE, the Persians were fighting wars with Egypt and Greece. The empire shook, and Judah felt it. Your city walls were torn down. You lived with instability. Then Alexander the Great arrived, and the Persian Empire crumbled. Overnight, the world became Greek. Hellenistic culture flooded in. New ideas about success, power, and meaning came with it. For the first time, Jewish people had to face a worldview that did not share their faith. The Greeks had philosophers instead of prophets. The teachings changed. The cynics said life was absurd, that you could not trust the promises of society or religion, that the best you could do was grab small pleasures where you could. The Stoics said life was ruled by fate, so your only wise move was to accept what you could not change with cold calm. Those were not just ideas, they were survival strategies. Answers to the question, how do I live when everything is falling apart? This is what the author of Ecclesiastes wrestled with. His world looked like it was collapsing. The promises his people had trusted about justice, about God's protection, about meaning and purpose, felt thin and fragile. At the same time, he was hearing Greek voices telling him, life is meaningless, get used to it. So he does something bold. He lays out all the dark questions on the table. He says, yes, life under the sun feels empty. Yes, justice often fails. Yes, we like animals. Yes, your hard work may come to nothing. Yes, you cannot control your circumstances. Yet he says all of this while remaining a faithful Jew. He does not drop the covenant with God. He wrestles with God. And in chapter 3, verse 1, he begins to shift. This is where everything turns. Part 3, the poem of times. After describing futility again and again, the author stops. Then he writes a poem, like a song. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heauen. Then come those pairs of opposites you know so well. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time of war, and a time of peace. But what is this all about? What is he doing, you ask? He is sweeping across the whole range of human life. Birth and death, planting and harvest, destruction and rebuilding, weeping and laughing, war and peace, gain and loss. The message is not that these things are random. The message is that they are ordered. There is a season for each of them. There is a time. For someone whose life feels like chaos, that claim is explosive. When you cannot control what happens to you, when injustice feels normal, when meaning seems to disappear, it is easy to think, there is no pattern, no purpose, no God. But Ecclesiastes says something different. There is an order. There is a God who is in control. There is a purpose to the rhythms of life, even when you do not understand them, even when you cannot see them, even when they wound you. The times of joy and the times of sorrow are both under God's rule. The seasons of planting and harvest are both appointed. You do not get to pick your season, but you do live in a world where seasons exist, where life is not pure accident. For people under foreign rule, living with injustice, and never sure about tomorrow, this was radical hope. It meant they were not abandoned to blind fate. It meant their suffering and loss were not outside of God's reach. At the same time, there is tension. The author never explains the pattern. He never tells you why this is your season of planting and not harvest, why this is your season of tears and not laughter. He never promises that everything will work out the way you want. He simply says, there is a time, there is a season, accept it. So what did this verse do in the hearts of the people who first heard it? Imagine you are a Jew in the 3rd century BC. Your grandparents lived under Persia. Your parents watched Greeks take over. You are trying to hold on to your faith, your identity, your sanity. You want to know where God is in all this. Someone reads, "To weary thing there is a season, and a time to weary purpose under the heauen." First, it tells you that you are not crazy. Life really does move in opposite directions. Planting and harvesting, mourning and dancing, gaining and losing. Life with God is not one smooth upward line. It is made of real seasons. Second, it quietly invites you to stop trying to control everything. One of the deepest fears of the human heart is the sense that everything depends on us, that if we just plan well enough and try hard enough, we can lock in the life we dream of. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "No. There are times and seasons that arrive without your permission. They run on a rhythm that is not yours. Strangely, that is meant as comfort. The weight of the world is not on your shoulders." Third, it redefines wisdom. If you cannot control the seasons, then wisdom is not about power, wealth, or success. Wisdom is about knowing what season you are in and responding rightly. When it is time to weep, you weep. When it is time to dance, you dance. When it is time to speak, you speak. When it is time to keep silence, you keep silence. Fourth, and most important, it anchors faith. Even when you cannot see God's plan, even when life seems empty and unfair, God is still sovereign. He has appointed these times. That means your suffering is not random chaos. It is part of a pattern God has woven, even if you cannot see how the threads fit. Part 5. What this means now. Now bring this forward into your life. You live in an age that promises control. You have GPS, search engines, apps to organize every hour, dating algorithms, investment tools, productivity systems, social media feeds full of people who seem to have mastered life. In some ways, that illusion of control is more dangerous than Persian rule. The Persians at least told you they were in charge. Our culture tells you that you are. Then life interrupts. A diagnosis, a loss, a betrayal, an accident, a decision someone else makes that wrecks your plans, a market that crashes, a relationship that dies, a dream that will not come back. Then you see it. You are not in control. You never were. In that moment, Ecclesiastes 3:1 can become your lifeline. First, it tells you that your current season will not last forever. If you are in a season of loss, it will not always be this way. If you are in a season of joy, do not clutch it too tightly, because life will move on. That is both warning and comfort. Nothing on earth is permanent. Second, it challenges you to stop fighting the season you are in. So much of our inner pain comes not only from what we face, but from our refusal to accept it. We are in a season of waiting, but we demand a season of achievement. We are in a season of grief, but we demand a season of gain. That resistance to reality tears us apart. What if you simply named your season? This is your season of grief. This is your season of waiting. This is your season of rebuilding. This is your season of rest. Not with despair, but with honesty. Once you name it, you can respond wisely to it. Third, it frees you from the lie that a successful life is one long string of wins. Our culture says success means always rising, always getting more. Ecclesiastes says success is faithfulness to the season you are given. When it is time to mourn and you mourn. When it is time to rest and you rest. when it is time to act and you act. Fourth, it says there is meaning beneath what feels like chaos. The writer of Ecclesiastes knew what it was to feel that nothing mattered. Yet he discovered that even that feeling could drive him toward God instead of away from him. Just a few verses later we read, "He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also he hath set the world in their heart, so that no man can find out the work that God maketh from the beginning to the end." God makes everything beautiful in its time. That includes your present season, even if right now it only looks like pain. You cannot see the whole pattern. You do not know the story from beginning to end. And that limitation is not a curse. It is what makes faith possible. If you could see every outcome and control every detail, you would not need to trust God. You would just manage your life like a project plan. But your life is not a project. It is a story God is telling, in you and through you. So, what do you do with all of this? Well, first, name your season. Not the season you want, not the one you present online, but the real one. Loss, waiting, transition, hard work, rest, grief, joy. Write it down. Say it out loud. Name it. Once you stop fighting to rename your season, you can begin to ask what God is doing in it. Second, ask yourself, what is the wise response to this season? In a time to weep, the wise person does not hide their tears. In a time to rest, the wise person does not shame themselves for stepping back. In a time to act, the wise person does not hide behind excuses, but moves forward with the strength they have. Third, remember you are part of a story bigger than your own comfort and success. The writer of Ecclesiastes lived in a tiny, powerless community. Nothing he did toppled empires. He could not control his world. Yet his words have outlived kings and kingdoms. They are speaking to you right now. The same is true of your life. You do not have to be powerful to matter. You do not have to be successful to matter. You do not have to be in control to matter. You matter because God has placed you in His story. You matter because you are here, in this season, and God is here with you. Ecclesiastes 3:1 is not a promise that everything will go the way you hope. It is something deeper. It promises that whatever happens is held within a structure, within a purpose, within a season God has appointed. That means you are never alone. Your pain is not meaningless chaos. Your loss is not random punishment. Your struggle is not proof that you have failed. Your struggle is your season, and God is the one who appointed it to you. Ecclesiastes 3:1. To euery thing there is a season, and a time to euery purpose under the heauen. You can trust that. You can rest in that. You can build your faith on that, even now, even in this season. Amen.